Remember, if you enjoy this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. Think about getting in the comments section below and letting me know if you really enjoy what you see. Make sure you Hulk smash that subscribe button. If you feel like you're in a position to support the channel and help it grow, think about using the link in the description to sign up for my Patreon page, sign up for membership right here on YouTube, or pick up your very own JerkComic shirts like the ones you see on the screen. But now, let's get into it. Welcome back, boils and ghouls. So I know it's been a while, but I am loving getting back into these indie spotlight interviews. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I am really into a guy named Tony McMillen. Tony's work hits me on a lot of levels. It's very guttural, it's very emotional, it's very raw, and it represents kind of like an evolutionary leap in what I see as storytelling going on with the independent comic book scene moving into the more mainstream. It is an absolute pleasure to have Tony on the channel tonight. I can't wait to get into his work. How are you doing tonight, man?
Dude, I'm doing really, really good. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. But yeah, honestly, my book just came out. I'm feeling pretty top notch.
Yeah, and before we get into anything, if you guys watch 5 minutes of this interview, go back, check it out. I've got a special on Tony where I flip through a bunch of his old books. His book that really has resonated most with people is called Attaboy. It's part video game manual, part comic book, part graphic novel, all very different things, all very Tony McMillen. I highly recommend that you check it out. It was independently released, but Mad Cave has recently picked it up. You can go to your LCS, you can order it. If they have a copy there, flip through it. Make sure you spread the word about it and check it out. We'll get into talking more about that later on, but I did want to get that out up front because I'm really excited about the reissue of Attaboy. It is, without a doubt, one of the 100 best comic books that I have ever read. You will not hear me say that very often on this channel. So, Tony, let's get into stuff. Tell me a little bit how you got into comic books. You are like a force of nature. You're always creating, you're always doing stuff. What ignited all of that for you?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for every kind word you just said is really touching. But with me, I think a lot of kids. I'm 42 now, so I kind of grew up in the late 80s, 90s, and it was a great time to be a kid in the comics. I was there for the image stuff. But basically, Tim Burton's Batman movie hit in '89, and Batman merch flooded the whole world. And so, like, it was inescapable. I saw the movie as a kid, and then they're selling The Dark Knight Returns at bookstores. So my aunt saw this book and was like, "Oh, this is a legitimate like book." And I was like, "Uh-huh, sure, it's a comic book. Let's get that." And so like flipping through that like age 9 or maybe 10, I was like swastikas on butt cheeks. I'm like, "Yeah, this is what comics are, I guess." And so Frank Miller just opened the doors for me, and I haven't looked back since. And I've always liked to draw, and drawing, reading comics, led to me to a lot of inspiration for drawing. But it's funny, I before trying to make comic books myself, I was always kind of I guess s- I was scared off because I think I had developed taste, and I thought that I could tell when a good comic was working and why a bad comic wasn't working, I think. And I was like, well, I can't actually produce a good comic, so why even bother? So I did other creative pursuits. I was in a band. I wrote novels, prose novels, and eventually I was like, I really want to just draw a comic book. I think I had to get past worrying about my skill not meeting my sense of taste. And I'm really glad I just went for it because I realized eventually, no matter how good you are, like there's a Jimi Hendrix one time was asked, like, like he's being complimented, and he's like, "Thanks, he's like, the songs in my head I can't play yet. I really think if you guys could hear those, you would, really knock you out." And I was like, "Well, okay. If Hendrix says that, I mean, if he can't get what he wants to, get where he wants to get, I mean, that's fine then. We nobody can."
That's awesome. That Frank Miller collection, my dad bought that for me. He hated comic books. You got to understand, my dad still calls them funny books. God love him.
Hmm.
And like he bought it from a bookstore because because it's a bookstore and it's a book for my kid and he likes comics, and like no idea what was inside of that. No idea what happened to our brain.
It Trojan horsed a whole generation, I'm pretty sure. And almost every cartoonist I talk to, even if they don't like that book anymore, which I do, I still love it. It's probably their most often read book, often read comic book, probably. At least it's in their top five. It's just one of those things. I don't know. It's a gateway drug. It was great.
I mean, a lot of those books didn't age well, and some of the story with the right wing weird crap that you can tell is still brewing with Miller at that point
Right.
is way beyond me. But like not being able to appreciate the Dark Knight simply, I mean, just take it from like an artistic storytelling and sequential storytelling standpoint. It's absolutely fantastic. And to be very fair, that's the only level I can enjoy the Killing Joke on at this point. I detest that story. I do not like it at all.
Yeah,
So,
even Alan Moore's basically said that like that was a bad idea, and we fulfilled the bad idea, but it didn't make it better. But I mean, the skill level, Boland stuff in there is amazing, and yeah, and it's a shame because there's some really good Joker origin stuff that's probably the best version of that I've ever seen in that story, but it's wrapped up in like the worst Barbara Gordon story ever made.
yep. Yeah. Okay. I'm not
Oh.
gonna get off into my Alan Moore rant about tropes with women and what happened to
Yeah,
Babs. But
right.
yeah, so you are coming to terms with, your skill level not initially meeting what's in your brain. And I agree. That's something that I think as an artist we all fight, and you attempt to get these pictures out of your head. And it sounds like this psychotic process to a lot of people because it is. And it
Yeah.
can be really nerve-wracking and it can take a lot out of you, man. You didn't come with a mini zine or a 22-page book that you could pawn off and be like, yeah, I'm going to kickstart a 22-page book. And then if it does well in a year, I'll kickstart another issue. Fuck that. You came with a vision and a story, and obviously something that you wanted to accomplish, like goal wise with Lumen. Can you talk a little bit about like what made you make that initial leap of like Hendrix, like I'm going to try to get these songs out?
Two words is Michelle Fife. I became a big Copa reader, and I had never, a lot of people have a period in their life where they kind of drop out of comics. I never really had that. I kind of always stayed with comics, but with Michelle Fife's Copra, it just hit me at the right time where I was like, it really reinvigorated me in a way, and it really got me like, this guy is just doing it. And then I love the comic, I love the storytelling, I love all that, but I also love the way he was making it happen himself. And I was like, okay, if he can do this and this is possible, I think I owe it to myself to try. And so I think I did the first 10 or 12 page sequence in Lumen. Just I didn't show anybody. I just did it myself to see if I dug the process, and I did. I really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I finished the first issue, and I was like, I'm just gonna put this out. I think I can get the second issue done in like a month or a month and a half, and I did. And I was like, okay. And then I was addicted to just pumping it out. And I think by issue four, that was like 2 months instead of 1 month when it came out. It was a little bit late, but that's okay. And that was pre before me becoming a father, and things have slowed down substantially. But it was cool because like I've written novels, I've been in bands, and I love all those things too. But with comics, I did discover I liked every part of the process. Even the frustrating parts were still just really fun. So like, being in a band sometimes it can be a drag. You argue with people, it's like you're doing take 12 of some bit that it's like, come on, it's but making a comic overall, even the worst moments are pretty good. They're pretty fun. So I learned that doing Lumen, and then I haven't really stopped doing that really.
What was the most fulfilling aspect of doing Lumen as like finally getting it done, finally taking that plunge? What was the most fulfilling part of all that for you?
I think in a weird way, it was the realization that comics are a sum of all their parts. So even on a page, there might be some images or some drawings, some panels which aren't the strongest, but they work together on that page, and that makes something stronger than all those pieces. And then each page within that comic, within that issue or that graphic novel unit or whatever you want to say, they all add together. So it's okay if some things aren't A plus material in your mind. It's going to be okay because that's not all the reader's going to absorb. And so learning that, I was like, okay. So in a way, it was sort of telling me my prior fear of just not being good enough. It's like it's going to be okay in the long run because overall, if you just try, have a lot of passion, put something together, I think the good will outweigh the bad, and it'll all help each other. It'll all be one piece, and that was huge. And I mean, also, and of course, like having a physical issue in your hand feels really good, and just just oh, this is it, I did it, and then later on mailing them out and stuff like that. That was a really cool feeling, and of course, people responding to it. And I'll say this too, doing novels before that, doing prose novels, you give somebody a book, even if it's a short novel, it's 200, 300 pages. You might not hear back from them for a little bit because it's going to take some while. It'd take a while to read it. I remember, I think Lumen 1 or 2. Some guy like he posted a picture like I got it. That's cool, and then he sent me a message like I think 40 minutes later. Oh, it's great. I'm like, oh yeah, you read it because of course you did. It's 24 pages. That's all it takes. Because at first I was like, "You fucking liar, man! You didn't." Oh no, he did read it. He did read it. Of course, and that's cool. I was like, "Oh, it's so instant. I love that."
That's got to be so strange. It, and like working on a novel too, because as you said, you've got two novels out and they are both really good. I do highly recommend
Oh, thank
everybody
you.
checks out Tony's work. He's just a multifaceted guy. I haven't found any of Tony's stuff that hasn't interested me enough to keep me engaged on one level or enough at any point. I'll just say that. So if you see Tony's name, it's usually worth 5, 10, $20 to take a jump on stuff. Um, so with Lumen, I know like getting something physical out is this huge milestone for a lot of people. And I imagine that kind of like really invigorated stuff, right? And I should also, I'm sorry, I did just think of this. We're talking about Michelle Fife, this huge with Cobra and this massive monstrous force who I really feel like did ignite self-publishing and independent publishing in a big way, just put out a new book, Cobra, How
Yeah.
to Make Comics the DIY Way. It is on his Etsy shop. I am going to be having Michelle on the channel soon. Check it out, guys. It is indispensable. Tony's not alone. I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
No, no, I totally agree. Everything you just said. He's like the famous story about how the Velvet Underground they played any show they played, a bunch of bands followed in their wake, and it's like that's why I feel like people who read Cobra, at least a third of them are going to make comics or something. Like it's so inspiring. Yeah.
It's incredible. There's like a kind of a spearhead of guys that came around the cartoonist kayfabe and a few other aspects of stuff like just prior to that, because Fife, predates all that by
Yeah.
several years. But he really came into it, and like Eli Schwab, him, Rocco Jerome, you. There's a very small list of guys that like came out and have really become powerhouses. Um, so was the reaction to Lumen, I'm assuming since you went on and did another project almost immediately following that, the reaction to that was fairly good. Can you talk a little bit about how
Yeah,
people
yeah.
responded to that book?
It was really positive, and what's cool too for me is I had positive reactions to my novels, but I kind of could tell already that a comic book is an easier sell in a lot of ways. There are pictures, it's a little more fun, it's less of a commitment in time, and so I was already making more traction. I felt like even with Lumen, and I was, and even if that wasn't the case, I was also just kind of in love with it at this point. Like I was like, oh, this feels so good. It felt like finally drawn a comic. It felt like I should have been doing this the whole time, and it was like this fits. This makes so much sense. It was like putting the square block in the square hole. Like yeah, this is made for this, and so that was huge. And yeah, I think I started an issue of Lumen 5, and then I didn't release it because I realized I wanted to do a different series called Serious Creatures instead. And so I think there's maybe a 2 month period, or maybe 2.5, and then I just did Serious Creatures. And so I was just like the ball was going down the hill, and just
And Lumen started it begins what I see as a recurring motif in your work. And we'll talk about it, I think, a little bit more as we move along. It has to do with masks, the masks that
Mhm.
we wear as socially in front of other people, as well as those that we wear for ourselves. The duality of nature in a lot of ways, not necessarily in the sense of like there has to be black to be white, but the sense that everything is gray and we exist in this very nebulous zone. Um, can you what brought about, if you haven't read it, guys, Serious Creatures is technically a fictional autobiography of two people simultaneously. A very well-known special effects guru from back in the day, the guy who did The Thing. That's what you'll know him for. But he disappeared after The Thing. It fucking broke him. That movie broke a lot of people, but Rob disappeared. And Serious Creatures is a biography of Rob, but really it's guised as an autobiography of Rob, and it's an autobiography of Tony as Rob, which is super, it is as interesting as it sounds. Where did the concept for that start for you at?
So what's funny with Serious Creatures, the core concept, I wrote a short story, a prose story called The Malfunctioning Werewolf. And I think I did that 7 years before Lumen, maybe eight. And I just published it on like MySpace or something. And yeah, I just liked it. And it was the barest idea, but I had a teenage special effects artist based on Rob Bottin, and I had some loose ideas about it, and I kept thinking about it, and I kept it's really weird to put this together, but it makes sense to me. I always loved the Who's Tommy, and what I loved about Tommy was that Tommy was good at pinball, and that's a really strange talent to have, and it kind of, but his whole life is about pinball, and I was like, okay, I was like, I have a special effects guy, and I am interested in masks, and this is a guy who makes masks for a living, and I was like, okay, and I was like, there's a lot to mine there. And I kept thinking like, okay, I was putting the story together, and I kept saying, oh, it'd be kind of cool because it's about California, and I lived in Arizona, and California was it was really weird because California was still this mythic place to me, but it was right next door, and I didn't visit until I was in my 20s for some reason. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna change Rob Bottin's backstory that he's from Arizona, like me, and in California be more like a big important thing. And then eventually I started inserting more of myself in there, and I was like, oh, this is cool because like it's about masks, and my mask is analog for Rob Bottin, and I'm behind two masks. I'm behind Rob Bottin, and then my character Bobby Feckle, and behind that is me, and there's all these masks already, and it was going to be a novel. And then after doing Lumen, I started thinking, well, it'd be really cool to draw some of these kind of surreal ideas I had about, because some of the parts of the story I wanted them to kind of have these flights of fancy. And I was like, oh, it's about special effects. So it'd be cool if there were special effects in the story. It's a lot easier to do it visuals. And so I just did like I drew the first 6 pages just to test it out. And like with Lumen, I was like, oh, this is the way to go. This feels great. And I kept on going. And Serious Creatures, I did 12 issues altogether. It's finally complete. I took a break after 1 through 6. I took a couple years breaks, and then I came back and just finished it up. But I'm really really proud of the book. I just I don't know. I think it's pretty good, and I think it's a really weird. Like you said, it's very strange. The only thing I think of is like Prince's Purple Rain, where it's like he's playing the kid, but the kid is Prince, but it's not Prince. But you can't help. It's fucking Prince. Like his band is the Revolution. It's like, what are we doing? Yeah, it's by Purple Rain.
Well, it was just awesome because when you read Serious Creatures, there were like moments and beats that hit really hard, man. Like they have an emotional brevity to them that is really hard for most writers to conjure up. So it was really interesting for me to, find out that there were like little aspects and moments in that book that just kind of like it hit me. When I got your stuff, I originally got the first half of Serious Creatures, Lumen, and Attaboy all at the same time. And Serious Creatures was the first one on the stack, and my daughter, she saw it and was like, "Can we read that?" And
Hmm.
I was like, "What?" My kid doesn't read comic books. It's not that she hates comic books, and this is like a few years ago, but she was like, "Can we read that?" And I was like, okay. And we sat down and I just started going through it, and we read about the first 30 or 40 pages. And she was like enthralled. And I took it up and finished the rest of that book myself that night.
That's
And
awesome.
it it introduced me to a lot of interesting concepts about your work, but there was one particular moment where they were at the airport and he has this magazine and it's an old I think it's a Famous Monsters
Yeah.
magazine, and it was just like, holy shit, this guy gets it. He gets this fucking guy gets it, because it's not like you don't waste 2 pages on building this thing up and mentioning this book all throughout it and doing this thing. You just know instinctively in like 1 page how much this magazine means to this kid. And learning that it was an analog for you and seeing more of your work and how you integrate yourself into stuff really makes that book just slam. Um, you
Thank
know,
you.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like I think part of it is like if it's coming from an honest emotional place, I don't have to worry about coming off as I think people just can read that like if it's the character because I'm like this is how I felt when this happened to me and I'm not putting too many layers on it. So like I think you just go like okay this feels like authentic. I just think it's almost easier to do that than make up something really crazy and that might be really dramatic, but I don't know how that feels, and so I don't know.
It might be, but integrating that seamlessly into a story about another person is not. And
Right.
that's one of the best things about your writing. And on top of your writing, I would be absolutely remiss if, we didn't discuss the monumental leap in artistic style that took place between Lumen and Serious Creatures. And Lumen is a very sparse book. It's very shape based. A lot of negative space,
Yeah.
really interesting like Tothian compositions, in my opinion. Ditko is another guy that comes to mind. Shapes, geodesic idea, and moving into Serious Creatures, totally different thing. Was that a natural evolution that just happened because like this is how this story needs to look, or was that something that was going on in your head?
I think it's because the story needed to look that way. And I think part of it was like a big challenge where Lumen, I kind of knew like I was gonna be like Ron Lim and Silver Surfer. Like, well, it's gonna be you're drawing a book, but it's a guy in a weird world of weird shapes and it's abstract and it's okay. And then Serious Creatures like, well, he's walking on a boardwalk and there are cars and boats and people who are regular. And can I do that? And a big inspiration for how to do that with my style was Sam Keith. Sam Keith I know obviously you're a humongous fan like I am. He can seamlessly go from a really crazy, fantastical world of weird heroes, but also do a cityscape or a town, and he reminds you that regular people are just as freaky and interesting as a superhero. So half the coolest stuff he draws in like the Max are just people on the street or Julie, and it's like, yeah, and even in Frank Miller also could do that. It's like I love to see his guys on the street, and some of them is like they're almost all like lost Dick Tracy villains. They're all this weird like potato people, and I think that's great. And so I took that as an inspiration, and then I was getting better, I think, at drawing comics and making comics of serious creatures. And then also I figured out, I think, a better way of coloring things. I start using more, it, everything's drawn with hand, but the colors are digital. But I start finding ways to do like digital watercolors, digital crayon. And I was much happier with the look of Serious Creatures color than Lumen. And I think it definitely was a big step up for me. And I felt really, after the first 6 issues of Serious Creatures, I felt like way more confident. I was like, yeah, I think I got my rhythm now.
Where did your color palette come from? For anybody who hasn't read your stuff, by the way, with Lumen, it's a limited color palette, and you're very obviously working with it and pushing it and learning. Serious Creatures, however, you come in with this absolutely beautiful and no, all just puns aside, luminescent watercolor with all of these dulcet neon tones and stuff. I'm not sure I've seen anybody else quite work that way. I was curious where that came from.
So I think okay, my biggest colorist hero is Lynn Varley from Frank Miller's collaborations and stuff like that. But then Serious Creatures, the big thing I kind of got into is Basil Gogo's paintings for famous monsters and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like the weird oil slick rainbow stuff. And I was like, I look at his stuff, I'm like, okay, so there's a picture of like the creature of Black Lagoon, and there's like purple, orange, green, there's every fucking color in the world, and like, why does this work? And I was like, I was trying to figure out how he made that work. And then I started doing that with serious creatures, and I was like, okay, I really like this. I think you can make this work. It's weird, you gotta play with it, and like I'm still following that. But Basil Gogo's like, if I have a collection of his famous monsters covers, and those alone are just like just all timers, and it's beautiful stuff, and it's so dreamlike, and it's still gritty. Like I like things that are colorful, but they're still smutty, and like kind of it feels like they've been stepped on, and that's and I think it balances my line work is very smudgy and grungy, and then the color kind of maybe balances it a little bit, and so I think that works.
It works wonderfully. That's
Oh, thank
insane.
you.
I never put together the Basil Go-Go's connection. I'm obsessed with Go-Go's. And as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, okay, there it
Yeah,
is.
that
There it
that
is. And Corbin, I can see a little bit of that, like
oh yeah.
that Richard Corbin really pushing stuff, when computers first started coming around and he was, man. So you did the first half of Serious Creatures coming off of Lumen. Then you did Attaboy, and we'll talk about Attaboy here in a second. Let's talk about the second six issues of
Yeah.
Serious Creatures coming back though. You took what, like an 18-month break or so in
It's like 2 years.
between?
Maybe it's 2 years. Maybe it's almost two and a half. I every time I could try to figure it out online, I'm like, is it later? I don't know what I did. I did a couple little. I did a Friday the 13th bootleg in between that too, and
Yeah.
then I did a book called Bounce House Bazaar, which is like an anthology, and I drew one story and I wrote the other stories. So a couple things happened. I wasn't exactly doing nothing, and I also published three novels, the Bleeding
Uh,
Tree trilogy. And so then I was like, okay, it's time to do Serious Creatures. I think it was like 3 years. I think it was two and a half at least.
Coming back to that book, the art was your second real attempt at a book. It's your first fully realized what I would consider sequential comic book, mainstream acceptable. I could release this as issues and stick this in anybody's face and they would recognize it and love it book. Coming back 2 years later, after Bounce House Bazaar, the anthology book, which is absolutely freaking awesome. You guys should check out as well. And your other work, was it difficult to make the art look cohesive, or kind of did you just slip back into that skin?
So I was a little worried about it, but the thing is, I found out the way the story is, Bobby Feckle, our main character, is growing up and time is passing. And so it kind of lends itself to like things can look a little different because Bobby's a little different and it's okay. And I also had to kind of accept that I'm a cartoonist who I can only draw the way I draw. I'm not like Jim Rugg's a guy who can put on different styles and they all look great. And that's not my thing. I can't do that. And that's okay. But I couldn't pretend to draw just like issue 6 of Serious Creatures. And I read it, fairly recently. I was like, no, you can tell it's the same dude. It's just a little, it's I think better. But and another big change was like by after Attaboy, when I did Attaboy, I started hand lettering things finally. Because before I was using a font that was my own handwriting. I said, no, I'm just gonna really do it. And so Serious Creatures 7 through 12 was hand lettered. And it's also, Serious Creatures is my most wordy comic book. There's a lot of conversation. So I was like cursing myself for hand lettering that. And that's why I'm doing the next thing I'm doing now is Lumen 2, and that's very sparse. I'm like, thank God. But anyways, Serious Creatures, yeah, I was a little worried, but I think it worked out. And when I did issue 7, it was really it's really nice to get back to Bobby and Jack and all those characters because like in a way I knew kind of where it was gonna go, but I let those guys hanging for so long. And it was really, and also it's really simple. I was like, oh man, I can finally draw Bobby with the beard. The last issue issue 6, he had a beard. I'm like, he looks so cool. I didn't get to draw with the beard. It's like doing a Batman comic and he's not Batman yet. It's like I want to put the friggin' ears on, man. So he's got the ears now. I'm like, hell yeah, he's got the beard. I was super happy with that beard. It's the little things that
No,
keep us
I
going.
just love it. I love it when I talk to people. What's your favorite part of the book? What I got to draw the fucking beard. It's amazing. Every line, I just luscious, luscious line. I was loving it.
You're not exaggerating. Exactly. That's exactly what I was like. Oh man, it looks so cool.
It's the little things, man.
Yeah.
and got to keep yourself entertained, dude.
Yep.
And by the way, the hand lettering super paid off. It is your
Totally.
wordiest work. And in the first one with the trade paperback and stuff,
Yeah.
I'd like it was like a little bit every once in a while. You'd have to be like, oh, okay, cool, and go back to it. By Serious Creatures 7, it was man, it was very worth the time to go in and hand letter that. It looks incredible. The evolution in style was great, but your page composition is what really stands out as
Oh,
having
thank you.
evolved. Um, I think probably a big part of your evolution of your page layouts, your sequential storytelling, and your what I would consider a mastery of the form of comic books
Oh, thank you.
came from Attaboy. And Attaboy is this absolutely beautiful Frankenstein of a lot of different pieces that should not work. Um, they don't even necessarily all appeal to me. I'm not a video game guy. I couldn't give
Yeah.
a I haven't played a video game since Tony Hawk, guys. When
I,
people ask me what do I have, I say an Xbox. And when I say an Xbox, I mean the fucking X one with the X on it, the big goddamn brick, okay?
yeah,
Don't give a
I,
shit about it.
I'm even worse than you because like people ask me all the time. I'm like, guys, actually, after Super Nintendo, I kind of stopped. I was kind of quits. So
Who
this is
cared?
yeah, this is a love letter to like the games I grew up on because yeah,
It's those beautiful manuals that
yeah,
came and they were done by really dedicated, usually Korean or Asian artists that was what they did. And god damn, Tony, you took everything from these awesome video game manual layouts that just like screams nostalgia and my childhood to me, but you put them in the format of a comic book, which is telling a story as you move forward, but done as a whole in the sense of a graphic novel, as something to be sat down and digested as one piece rather than individualized segments. It is an amazing accomplishment. Can you talk about where the concept for that even came from?
yeah. So you basically were on to it. Like when I was a kid, I had a cousin who's a little bit older than me, cousin Ben, and he was playing Zelda, and I think I was like 7, maybe 8, and Zelda was a little hard for me, but I loved the manual. The manual was beautiful, and I was like, this manual is all I need. This manual is like a whole. There's a story. There's beautiful artwork. This is my Lord of the Rings. Like this is my Hobbit, and I always remembered that. And then eventually, at some point, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to do like a fake, like a manual for a fake game. And I was like, oh, you know what's cooler than that is if you make a comic book, but it's like it's disguised as a manual. And I had this idea. I was like, okay, that's cool, but I didn't have a story. I had no idea. And so initially, Lumen was gonna be this. Lumen was gonna be it was gonna be more of an art book where you got the story just, but there's no sequential art. It was just different, various drawings and some like text. And then I realized I wanted to really do a comic book, and I was like, oh, I don't think this is like right for my first comic to really try to draw something this weird. I should just do like a comic that's more like a normal comic to figure out how to do comics. But I was like, okay, I still had this kernel. And then the other element of Lumen, which is an attaboy, is I was drawing Esteban and his armor, and I was like, I drew a picture where his armor, his mask, the front part was missing. He had a triangle over his face. It was almost like Magneto's helmet. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. You frame it like that. And I was like, start drawing more. I was like, oh, this is a different guy. This is another character now. Cool. And then I was like, oh, he's like an Astro Boy. He's like a Mega Man. And then I was like, oh, he's like a Mega Man. This is what I'm gonna do the game manual with. I got this character, Attaboy. I thought of the name and I was like, hey, cool. But it still wasn't ready yet. And the thing that was missing, the most important thing was like I started realizing okay, you could do a Mandela effect thing, right? Like, there's no one remembers this game, and there's I forget the name of it. There's this urban myth about this arcade game that like it was in like Seattle, I think, or Portland area, and like their government guys would like sneak away kids who were playing it. I forget. Nine Inch Nails did a video and they actually incorporated it. But anyways, I was like, okay, there's cool stuff. And then I was like, wait, if the narrator's talking about like growing up with the game. I think like he could talk about maybe his growing up in general. And at that point, I'd become a dad. And I think the big thing was I kind of thought I was done. I kind of thought I was done with my like angst of my parents stuff. I thought like I wasn't gonna become corn. I was gonna do like I hate my dad for every 7 records. I was gonna just let it go. And I realized, no, I got some more to say now. Now these feelings are actually much more strong, and they're much more to the surface. And having my own kid, this stuff, I had something to talk about. And so I figured out, okay, this manual can be personal and it can be weird conceptually. And I didn't think it was experimental, but it was. And it could also just be really awesome. And after doing Serious Creatures, I was like, it'd be cool to draw some stuff of not a lot of words and just people smashed into each other because I haven't done that for a while, and I like doing that. And it was like, this is everything I want to do right now. And so it was like, it was ready to go. And I was like, cool. And I figured out the logo too. I remember when I drew the logo. I think I have done a few logos. This is my best one, I think. I was like, oh, this looks slick. Like I'm into this. Like, and it was time to do Attaboy. And it's funny when I would talk to people about Attaboy before it came out, everyone's like, yeah, make that book. Let's do this. And for the first time, I had a little bit of people had expectations, and I was like a little worried. Like, oh shit, man, I hope I don't like. I hope they're here for like the personal stuff. And luckily, almost everyone's like that's their favorite part of the book is when it has the heart, which is what and it just goes to show it's always like it's almost always a good idea to put your heart in your sleeve. So yeah, Attaboy happened, and I think it made me a better cartoonist. And I'm happy that it's getting a wider release now because I think it's a really good introduction to what I do.
It is. I'm not gonna lie, I sat down and read all of your books, and the subject matter in Attaboy, as you mentioned, does deal with the loss of childhood, innocence, through some very interesting lenses. And it was a really interesting way to tackle a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. I will not lie, that comic did have me choking up. Uh, I'm on record as saying I cried the first time I read it. I thought it was beautiful. I love that you describe it as getting to draw people smashing shit up, because that's like such a predominant part of that book, and yet it's not what I remember or resonated so heavily with me. It was this story that is in between the gutters and the panels, and this narrative that you're weaving not just as yourself, Tony McMillen, as an author, but also using Polybus, this Polybus, which is the name of the video arcade
Right.
game that you were talking about, using this kind of Mandela effect and drawing people in and inviting them. Don't you remember when this happened? Not the game. Like, don't you remember when our parents fought and you came
Right.
next door and we played games and you it was fucking beautiful, Tony. I
Thanks,
mean, I
man.
don't know how else to put that. And originally you self-released it. It's a treasury-sized book. If you guys get a chance and you get to pick up the first printing of it, it's slightly larger. I do recommend getting it. It's a beautiful book, but it is readily available. Thank God for the masses. Finally, I've been talking about this book for several years, so this is a big thing for me. Attaboy is available for order from your LCS. You can go there. Mad Cave will have it to you there. Tell your LCS to pick up a copy. Get it
Please
out
do.
on the stands so people can flip through this, because I guarantee you it is going to be the same fucking thing as that Zelda manual. Pick it up, and it's going to be everything you need right there. It's going to be shit getting smashed. It's going to be all this beautiful artwork, great storytelling, wonderful package, awesome price. Um,
Thanks, man.
was was it a conscious decision to kind of continue what had worked so well with Serious Creatures in integrating self aspects of yourself into these comic book avatars with Attaboy? Or, I know you said it kind of evolved. It really grew onto itself. So I'm curious if that was something that was a journal in your head to begin with, or
I think it was an unconscious thing, but I think by the time I was finishing Attaboy, I realized kind of, okay, it's weird. I always I didn't like when Stephen King had a bunch of characters who were writers. I always thought that was lazy. But bunch of my characters are artists in some form. So I don't maybe there's something to it, or maybe we're both lazy. But I I just realized I was like, the reason why I didn't make the video game manual book before that was I didn't have anything to say. I had this cool way to say something, but I had nothing to say. And now I had something to say, and that something to say was really close to me. And at the same time, I don't think I'll ever maybe do a straight autobiography comic. I don't think my life is that interesting, but I do think there's ways to inject it with analog and with allegory and stuff like that. And I think that's the way to do it. And it keeps me interested. And also I think it's actually a little more potent if you kind of sneak up on somebody. If you're like, oh, this is a story about Robot Boy doing this and that, and you're like, wait a minute, wait, what is his dad a bad guy? Like what's going on? What's this about? And that's the way to do it, I think. The kind of because no one wants to have those like serious conversations usually. You're not ready for that. So that's what I think that's what happened. And it was cool. It happens in everything I do where I do have plans and things are kind of mapped out, but then there's always something that surprises me. And a lot of times it's like it's the weirdest thing. It's like standing on top of something and you realize it's a turtle shell and it's moving. And you're like, "Oh my, where are we going? What's up?" And that's fun. It's exciting, but it's really weird.
It's the funnest part of the creative process, but it can also be really horrifying, and it can be that tipping point where something goes from good to great or from good to absolute shit. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like where you're walking and you're like, oh God, oh man, one side or the other, going good, guys.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about how did Mad Cave end up did you approach them? Did they approach you? I'm curious about how
Yeah.
this reissue came about.
So I approached them, but it's funny. I at some point I guess I started writing query letters better because I got before Mad Cave, I actually had one other offer from a literary agent for mostly kids books. And he read Attaboy, he liked Attaboy, and we had a Zoom meeting. He's a very nice guy. And he's like, "Yeah, I love it a lot. It's about what, 74 pages?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's right." He's like, "I think we need something about 200 pages." I was like, "200 pages?" Because I think he said first, he's like, we might have to make it a little longer. I was like, okay, like maybe I could add a couple sequences. And I was like, that's a lot, man. He's like, I know, but these books usually tend to be like that length. And he's a nice guy. He sent me a bunch of like YA comic books and stuff, the kind of stuff that he's represented. And I was like, okay. I was thinking about it. I was like, let me just see it. This letter I wrote finally worked on somebody because when Attaboy first came out, I sent out a bunch of query letters to places and no one ever responded, and that's fine. And so then I sent out the query letter, the new one, to a couple other places. Another literary agent was into it, and eventually they said, "Hey, we like the book. We don't know if we can sell it. Good luck." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." But the Mad Cave got back, and Mad Cave they liked the book as is. They were all about it, and I could tell right away. Everyone who talked to me from Mad Cave had read the book, and they were picking up on what it was about, and it was a really cool process. I don't have much to compare it to, but it was painless. I worked with the editor, and I think that we added 6 commas, two sound effects. I think it says smash at one point, and I think it looks cool now. It says smash, and maybe a zat, an extra zat. And that's it, man. Oh, and we moved a couple word balloons here and there, and he was right. I was like, okay, this reads better. Okay, you're right. But it's creator owned, so I own it. And I had the final say on things, and that was cool. And it's funny. I always knew I wanted to do something creator owned. I don't want to, I don't want to have someone else make these choices. But I realized how protective I was about Attaboy, and it had been out for like almost 3 years at that point too. And so I was kind of like, no, this is the book. Like I don't want to change it. And they didn't really ask for any changes, and they got it. Like they told me when they read it, like they basically they have a meeting and they go through, "Hey, what has everyone read through the pile?" And everyone said Attaboy, and everyone like somebody apparently cried, and so they said they cried when they read it, and yeah, I was like, oh yeah, so. I was like, all right, great. And so, the check cleared, which is important. They're down. It's been great. The editor I work with is a super awesome guy, very creative guy, and it's been really fun. It's been cool. It's been weird and different. Like I had a meeting with marketing and there was like 13 people there, and I was like, oh, and they had read the book. And I was like, okay, I could tell you actually had read the book. You were talking about Scrapper, you're talking about this guy. I'm like, okay, you know what's up. That's cool. That's very different.
That's awesome. Man, I'm glad to hear it went off with no hinks and stuff. I haven't got a chance to pick up the reissue. I've got it on order, but I haven't been to my LCS. So, um,
Well, it's funny. The book came out yesterday, and I was working, and I had a chance to go to one shop which is close to me, and I know the owner. His name's Alan, a good dude. I went there, and went in, and Alan's like, "Hey, when's the book come out?" I was like, "Today, Alan." He's like, "I didn't get it." I'm like, "Shit!" And he ordered some, and there's a couple stores that didn't get their book, so I was like, I chose the one store in the Boston area that does not have my book, and so I was like, "All right, well, that's cool." I was like, really looking forward to seeing it. That's fine. That's fine.
That's my second buddy that's happened to, man. You go into a shop and you're like, "Do you have my book?" And they're like, "No, that came out today." Is
Yeah.
oh shit, we got shorted on that. Every copy. You mother. At least you
Yeah.
were doing a signing.
It's true. They got their copies. I made sure of that. But goddamn, it's crazy.
It sucks, man. I fucking never thought I would ever miss Diamond, and fuck you for making me miss you, Penguin Random House and fucking
Yeah.
random ass solicitations everywhere.
No, I get it, man. Shops, it sounds really insane to have trying to get all your stuff you want your people want.
It was so bad dealing with Diamond, and now it's just like a whole nother nightmare.
Right.
I remember these Wild West days of like 12 distributors back in the late 80s and early 90s working at a shop. God damn it, it sucked then and it's gonna suck now. Uh Obviously the book just came out like you mentioned. So there's not gonna be like a massive metric for how it did, but
Right.
has there been a good response?
The response has been good. But what's interesting is actually one of my first conversations was with like somebody higher up at Mad Cave, and they're like, "Hey, we really like the book. We really believe in it. He basically was like, hey, I don't know if it's going to be a big seller at first. We don't know that. We kind of feel like it's going to be a critical hit, and it might be a word of mouth thing." He's like, and we're totally cool with that. And it's funny. In my mind, I was like, "Nah, dude, this is going to be like huge," and I was like. He's right, and that's a really nice feeling to be like, it's okay. It's not like a movie where if it doesn't have a huge weekend, it's just over. It has some legs. So I was like, that's really nice to know. And um, so I'm super interested to know what the numbers will be like or what but all the word of mouth has been really really positive, and there have been reviews, and they're all very nice and flattering. And there's like a Net Galley where they have people who who do reviews, and there's been like only one or two negative ones, and they actually one of the negative ones is like the art is exquisite. I was like, okay, well, 2 stars, what's up? And then he's like, I have no idea what's going on here with this book. And I was like, all right, well, it's fair. Well, thanks for the compliment. But I was like, the opening line was like, the art is exquisite. I'm like, I think this is a 2 star review. Really? I don't know. I would never start out like a restaurant. The food was exquisite, but got to give him 1 star. The reason why is napkins. Napkins is not folded to my liking. I don't know. But I'm gonna. I talked to some friends who are like way more established than me, and most of them don't read reviews. And I'm at the point like I don't have a lot of reviews, so I read all of them. And they're like, "That'll change, dude. You'll see how you don't want to read the reviews, even the good ones. It'll get in your head." And I'm like, "Okay." And I think that will probably happen if things get bigger.
It influences you, and like even going through like a comments on YouTube, I'll find myself like second guessing stuff like, oh, should I have talked about no, you know what? Fuck you. It happened. And my gut said go with it, and I'm gonna go with it. But the more you get other voices in your head, the harder that is to do.
Yeah,
But I really do. I think Attaboy is going to be, an evergreen book, a
I hope so.
perennial seller. This is going to be something that like people give to their friends, get as gifts, and then you're spreading the word. Because I know I've already turned God knows how many people onto it just from hanging out, and being like, what's sitting on the table? Oh, Tony McMillen books. If you have not read, here's Attaboy and Serious Creatures. Those two trades I've loaned out probably a 25 times since you
Um,
sent to me, man.
Thank you, thank you. That's really great.
Well, and like I don't even talk to that many people who read comics. So like the fact that that many people are interested in actually checking it out says a lot as well. But I really do. There's a couple of guys that I'm into that I see you guys as building, and your career is just it's gonna hit a point where you guys are gonna be able to do what you want, when you want, kind of how you want. And I'm really interested. You are now doing a sequel to Lumen as well, after
Yeah,
many years being away from this project, after doing 2 runs on Serious Creatures, your own anthology book. You have changed as a person in a very major way after your child. Speaking for myself, very, from my own experiences, just the things that alter in your brain, the way that you look at the world is absolutely alien to when before you're a care, before you have to care for this little tiny person and child that is always looking to you for advice and stuff. Do you feel like there was a big change because you had your kid in between your daughter in between
It,
uh
it was, I think it was Serious Creatures issue 2.
I was gonna say
You
just
know,
after Serious Creatures started, right?
yeah, exactly. And then that's when I realized this won't be monthly. This will be bi-monthly at best. That's the way it's gonna be.
So did you double down at that point and decide like this is what I'm gonna do? Was there a moment where you were like, I need to reconsider, or you thought about moving in another direction?
No, because I've been lucky enough that I could still hold down a job and still do this, and so it was never like, oh, I was in question of losing I've always had I don't know, I've always had a good work ethic, and I've had plenty of jobs and worked in warehouses and stuff like that, and like, I don't know, I've never been worried about that. I always do the job. Um, but also it gives me so much joy, and I'm kind of conscious of like I want to make myself happy. And it seems like such a simple thing, but in a way, it's like, well, this keeping me happy will makes me a better partner for my wife, makes me a better dad. I think you gotta take care of yourself a little bit, and so I knew this was making me very happy expressing myself. So I wasn't worried about that. With Lumen, the thing is like, it's been a while, right? It's been a long time,
Yeah.
and I kept thinking like, one of my favorite movies is Road Warrior, and I know you like Mad Max stuff, and Road Warrior, I think like a lot of kids in America, especially, I saw Road Warrior first. I didn't even know it was Mad Max 2. And I was like, okay, like this could be someone's first Lumen story. And it's not going to be like there's still continuity if you want to read that, but this can be your entry point. And I think it'd be kind of cool to kind of like Road Warrior did and later Fury Road, like let's do some similar stuff and then let's blow it up. Let's see what I can do now with this kind of action adventure story. And so we're going to call it Destroying Angel Lumen. It's got like a crazy new villain. Uh, I finished they're gonna be, I think, 4 issues, all 48 pages. Um, and I finished the first one already, and it's pretty fun. And it's like I think there's like 16 pages of silent action, and then there's like
I
yeah,
thought you were taking a break. You posted after Serious Creatures. I'm taking a break. It feels so good to take a fucking break. You've already gotten the issue done. Jesus
yeah.
Christ, Tony.
Now, here's what I realized, like the trick is like I see like older bands and the way they tour now, they don't take on the whole world. They tour for like a month, they take like maybe a month off, and then they go back to it. And it's like and that's the way to keep it going. So I'm taking care of myself. So I finished the 48 pages of that issue 1, and now I'm taking it slow. It's been like 2 weeks, so I'm gonna chill. Week 3, I'll probably start doing more thumbnails and figuring out issue 2 of this thing, but it's already off to a pretty good start, and like it's been really fun to revisit your characters is always fun, but it's also really it's cool to do. I forgot what the the cool thing about Lumen is like this is a guy with a lantern walking around in a night world. And half the fun is it's like he's exploring and he walks through ruins and walks. It's like one of the coolest parts of the first Alien movies when they're just walking around and seeing like they see the engineer in the big chair and they see, the space jockey and they see the eggs and it's like this, just exploring ruins and weird. It's like cool and spooky and that's the first like 16 pages just going back into that groove. I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I like Lumen. This is what's fun about it. And then there's mushroom monsters and crazy shit, and there's an apple owl, and there's a bunch of weird stuff. Um, yeah, it's been a blast. And just like with Attaboy, I do serious creatures, and I love doing serious creatures. But after that, I want to do the exact opposite. I want to do action. I want to do movement, and now I'm back to doing that. And it's funny. I already know like there'll be a project down the line. It'll be more like serious creatures in the fact that it's more literary. But it's really fun to do like smashing into stuff again. And there's more meaning to it, of course, and there's something else for the reader. But I don't know. I think it's gonna rock. It's like I did like my nice acoustic album. Now it's time to get like heavy distortion and just drench it and just go nuts. This is metal. This is a metal album.
Oh man, you got me excited now. So as we talked about, throughout all of your work, this motif of masks and using characters as kind of avatars for aspects of yourself. Um, what can we look forward to with Destroying Angel Lumen? What are we delving into this time?
I really love that you brought that up because it really fits with this book. So in Destroying Angel Lumen, Esteban is the Lumen Knight. He's their main character, and he wears a mask, and he's sort of he's got a lantern, and he's a younger guy, but he's out there in this world called Noctera. It's a night world, and the villain he encounters is the Destroying Angel, and he is this really interesting looking like a black and red sort of figure. He looks almost like the sinewy armor from Bram Stoker's Dracula, and maybe one of the Imperial Guards from Star Wars kind of like had a baby, and or like the Batmobile from the 1960s Batman show became a guy, but he's this thing. But he's another masked character, and a lot of this is going to be Esteban starts seeing similarities between the two of them. And the Destroying Angel is a silent figure; he doesn't say anything, but you realize that he also uses lumen in a different way to feed his armor. He uses a different kind of lumen, which is the Destroying Angel in the title, and it's going to be sort of like Esteban seeing a possible future for himself where with the path that this character has taken, the Destroying Angel. And so it's about mask and maybe addiction or losing yourself in your identity, which is not truly it's your armor. It's not really your real identity. And of course, there's comfort in that. Armor keeps you safe, but it also inhibits you from feeling things, from touching things. And that's in there. And that's it's not going to be heavy-handed in the book, but it's definitely in there. And I think it makes sense. I think when you see a mask, the first thing you wonder is like what's behind it, and then you wonder why are they wearing a mask. And I've always loved masked characters and movies and shows. Darth Vader, Lord Humongous, Jason Voorhees. It's always really, and it's like the Scott McCloud thing where like the simpler a face or an abstraction of face is, the more people can project onto it. And if you see like Darth Vader's mask, you can't see any part of him. You look at the head movements, you look at the way he's doing things to kind of figure out what he feels, and that's super powerful. There's something about that. It just works.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with it since I was younger. And when the Max came around
Mm,
and introduced this kind of, and I do kind of almost at this point feel like Sam was, I don't know if he was taking a shot at McFarlane
mm.
or if he was like, do you just not know what to do with the brilliant idea that you hit on where like, the mask is this horrific projection of someone else onto the max. So yeah, I've always been obsessed with this idea. It's something that I find myself going back to, and it speaks really heavily to me in your work. I'm kind of curious, where did that idea, where did that, because it's a theme, a predominant theme that shows up in your stuff. It's very intelligent. I believe it comes from Jungian philosophy, but where did you encounter it? Why is this such a large part of your work?
It's a good question. I guess I don't know. Like I do think that I stumbled upon. I guess first off, drawing masked characters is fun and interesting, looking in their dynamic. But even knowing like the more that's covered, the more interesting and weird it is, and the way you can project. Like Spider-Man's mask covers his whole face, and something about Spider-Man's mask covering his whole face, it makes you it's not even like a human face anymore. And especially if someone like McFarlane draws them, you look at the side, like you can't see the nose, it's just a blob. And that's like there's something really weird about that. It makes me think of things. And then when I start doing stories like Serious Creatures, when it's a guy like he literally makes masks, it's like what does that mean? What does it mean to like make masks for a living? Your main art is to cover your face, and it's like, well, you can see a lot of potential for kind of poetic thought about covering your face. And I don't know, like I haven't worn a lot of masks in my life, literally, but I just think there's something about them. And of course, with scary stuff, it could be very an easy kind of freaky thing to have someone wearing a mask. But I just think there's something there. And Lumen and Serious Creatures, and I have a character named Grape Shot who's sort of my like diabolic kind of standing guy. And I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be so cool to have a black mask and one purple eye. And I haven't even shown his real face yet, and I don't know if I ever will. And I'm like, I think it's really interesting why people wear masks, what masks mean, and why, for as a reader, I can look at a mask and sometimes get more feeling off of that than a human face. And I'm like, what does that mean? Do we it's like the like Rorschach from Watchmen. It's like he calls his mask his face. Like, do we hate our face? Do we not want to be human? We want to be something else? It's something there. It's weird. It's potent.
Beautiful. And it's really interesting because as a creator, you are one of the few people that I don't feel like wears a mask for your public persona. You kind
Oh,
of lean into yourself a lot more. It's maybe in the sense of like kayfabing yourself, like you're gonna exaggerate, but I
sure.
I just get the feeling that you're like me, man. You hit a point where it's like I could lie or try to be someone else or like put on these fucking masks that I have to wear to be out in public, to talk to this person, to talk to that person. This is my art. This is what I'm passionate about. And this is where I refuse to do that. This is where I will unmask myself, but no one will ever see my face.
Beautiful. Yeah, I totally respond to all of that, and that's very true. I sometimes wonder, especially with indie comics, where you're making these books. It's just you. You're making these books. You should really, you should really want to make these books. You should really be talking about something you care about. And I think sometimes people mask it in sarcasm or just kind of maybe a little frivolous action. And I like action and adventure stuff too. But I sometimes wonder if the people are afraid to just go, hey, this is me. Like, and I'm like, well, you're wasting your time. And you're also maybe wasting your audience's time because yeah, and that's how I feel. And there's also like I think it's probably not really Mark Twain. There's that line about like if you never tell a lie, you don't have to remember anything. And I think that, like it's just a lot easier to be like, well, I didn't lie to this person because I just don't do that. So what did I say? Oh shit. Okay, I said that. Okay, cool. Then yeah, I guess we're gonna go there this Saturday. That was the plan. Okay, I agreed to it. Okay, let's do it. Like it's just easier. It's an easier way to operate.
It's the better way to operate. It creates
Yeah.
better art. It's more transparent. You shine through more in your art. I think it's one of the things that allows you to speak so well through other voices. Because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
struggle with that because they're wearing this mask and trying to pretend to be someone else and doing shit that they don't really care about, they're not really interested in. So how the hell are you gonna, cosplay as another person if you can't even be comfortable in your own skin?
I think you definitely nailed that because yeah, half of being a storyteller is an honesty with yourself and even the ugly parts of yourself, and you inject that in your characters and your stories. And yeah, some of my stuff is kind of confessional in some ways, and some of it, and even in a reverse way, because I've had plenty of like art that I've made that's confessional, like, oh, I'm a bad person. These are the bad things I've done and thought. I've had lately sometimes like, hey, this is a good moment. This is a little bit of a every once in a while I am not so bad. Or maybe I don't think about it. My instincts are actually pretty gentle or good and nice. And so it's okay to say that too. It's okay to be like it's also funny getting older, realizing how naive I still am and being like I'm only now understanding how how much I don't understand anything. And it's okay to express that.
It shines through on the page, man. I'm really looking forward to checking out Destroying Lumen Angel because I think it's going to be a wonderful kind of crosswalk between the very visual aspects of your work that I enjoy so much and in stuff like early Lumen and Attaboy. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you bring to the game storytelling wise because after Attaboy, I just feel like you kind of cracked a code. So I'm really reading Serious Creatures was an experience because of how confident you are on the page now. You could tell that everything that was there was very cemented. It didn't even necessarily have to be like planned out for 10 months. It was so natural, it needed to be there. It is comic book making, you've been at it for oh my for years at this point. Is it becoming more of an instinctual thing for you when you put together a project and following through on it now?
Yeah, I think so definitely. I think I always leaned on my instincts, especially from the beginning. But now I'm like I think I'm a little bit more aware of like going, yeah, that's right because it feels right, but also that's right because this can work because I've done it before, or I've seen it done before, or I've done that before and it didn't work, so I'll change this one thing. So I think it's definitely a process, and it's almost been 10 years of making comics now, and so I feel really good about really good about them. And don't get me wrong, I still have frustrating days and times, but it's all problem solving. And I feel like what's each project has its own challenges and own kind of fun rewards. Like destroying Angel Lumen, back to Michelle Fife's Copra, like what's cool about Copra is if you try to tell somebody about Copra, there is no high concept elevator pitch. It's a really cool superhero book drawn by like a guy who just wants to do it his own way. And that's kind of the only concept. It's like it's an auteur's superhero book, but there's no like and they're actually, just actors. There's no twist. And that's cool. And so Destroying Angel Lumen and Lumen in general is sort of my like straight adventure story. There's some weird stuff, but Attaboy is more conceptual, and then Serious Creatures is more a literary story. And I'll probably do some more weird conceptual stuff down the line, but it's kind of cool to just be like, hey man, this is just a really well cooked steak. This is a good steak and potatoes, or this is a taco, and it's fucking tacos are great. It's okay. You don't have to deconstruct anything. It's just, do you like this? Here we go.
Are you thinking about, like I normally wouldn't ask anybody this because you're working on destroying Angel Lumen, but you always are like a chess player and thinking kind of a few moves ahead. Are you thinking about your next project? Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, I am. So I basically in the back of my brain since I did Attaboy, I was like, well, it'd be cool to do another concept kind of thing, but not to just push it, just waiting for one of those to hit me. And but I was like, you gotta do it. Like when the Doors did the end, the next record had when the music's over, because that's another 11-minute long huge song. It's like just to show people we could do this. We didn't. It wasn't an accident. We can do this. So I'm really into lately. I love Jack Kirby's animation pitches. He produced so many of them. They're incredible. You the was it 7-part series, 6-part series?
Yeah, it was a 6-part series. It's 12 hours long.
Oh, it's epic, man. It's good. I've watched it. So like that I love that period in his career and the concepts, And I also love Alex Toth's collection of his animation stuff and stuff like that. And I was like, well, it'd be really cool to do a comic book story that is disguised as uh, a fake comic book creator who became an animator guy, his series of pitches. And that's the basic idea of the book. And so what I'm gonna work on is I got tons of weird ideas that could be fun for pitches and there'll be some sequentials in there. The thing I gotta work on is I want to draw some of these in a style it's not exactly like my style. It's something more reminiscent of late 60s, 70s. And the idea is maybe this guy he starts devolving into a style more like mine. Like this guy's losing it. It's sort of like when you watch the Crumb documentary and his brother, his older brother, who like which I thought looked fucking awesome when everyone looks like they're made out of tires. I'm like, this, yeah, dude, let's do more of that. So you'll eventually see like when the guy in the book's like, oh man, this guy he lost it. It's like, oh, that's Tony's style. That's how he draws normally. Cool. So that's the big idea. I'm working on it. It'll be there eventually, but I'm like, there's a lot of potential there, and like I love again, it'll be another book about an artist. So like I gave Stephen King shit. I'll write another book about an artist, which is what I am. He'll probably be Irish and Italian, maybe not. I don't know yet.
You can still give King shit for doing it badly. How's
There you
that?
go. There you
He
go.
does
Yeah.
it badly. All
Right.
right. You do it well. It's all right.
So far. Yeah. No, yeah, but I think that would be really cool to do that. That's one thing I'm definitely I'm
That
really
sounds
hyped about.
awesome.
Thanks. I haven't told anybody yet, so like I hope people like hear that and go, yeah,
Oh, fucking exclusives, guys.
exactly.
This is why I love this channel, man. I get in on this shit. People's heads are there, man. Like, I don't know if you heard, but DC is going to be publishing the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez model guides as
I
a
meant to
book.
get that. Yeah, it looks. I mean, I've always poured over that online. Like this looks amazing. Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my, I was beyond myself. Like I still hope Scott Dunbier does something. He was collecting scans of Jose stuff for like a few years before he left IDW.
Right.
Keep praying at San Diego Comic Con he's gonna be like, and I'm starting my own company and fuck IDW, and these are gonna be the new standards for artist editions. What we're starting with is Jose
Right.
Garcia Lopez. Yes. Because I
Dude,
grew up in that 89 era after Batman. And so like my Batman is either like advertising Jim Aparo or
yeah.
Jose Garcia Lopez. Like that's it.
Yeah, I definitely had some Jim Aparo Batmans were some of my first single issue Batmans I ever read. And yeah, I actually wish I think I lost a couple of them, but I still have a few. It's great.
I had everything stolen from me twice in my life from my comic books, and like I've never bothered to replace but four issues. And there was an Untold Tales of Batman series that he did that just recapped like old like origin crap and that kind of stuff, like in between issues and shit from back in the day. And that like the I love Giordano. I love Aparo and Garcia Lopez. They're like so ingrained in me. But it's so cool to see people gravitating back towards wanting to see that process and getting more involved and evolved as readers and wanting to get more challenged as readers too, man. I think that's one of the things that I think probably will work best for Attaboy is I see a lot of people not really looking for books that have that clever plot, the lift pitch anymore. Who gives a fuck? I've seen
Right.
every M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong movie out there and they all fucking suck. I don't need Bruce Willis to be a fucking ghost at the end of the
Right.
movie. I just want good, solid storytelling.
Exactly. And especially, with gimmicky storytellers, even mystery sometimes they're like a game. And once you know how it ends, it's just there's no value for going back to it. If that's what your whole thing's built on, yeah, it's a little weak. So yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. And I think you're right. I think the audience is sophisticated enough in general to kind of appeal to, they want something different like that.
Yeah, it does. It seems like they really are crying for unique and interesting voices. I think we're getting some great, yeah, Matt Lesnowski finally getting his stuff out,
Yeah.
Faceless in the Family. It's absolutely incredible. I love seeing that. So Oni Press, hats off to them. Some really great stuff going on. But I see you on you guys like right on the forefront of this big shift that is going to come into comics over the next 4 or 5 years as stuff kind of moves where people that are reading peripherally are going to be going digital. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And people that stick with the analog stuff are going to be the more intelligent readers that want to see unique and interesting voices and people that are constantly changing and evolving from projects. And that's another thing, man. Like, none of your books are the same in any regards whatsoever. You can hold them next to each other and unequivocally say, like, this is a McMillen project, but there's nothing codifying about your work. Is that something that you're conscious of when you go into producing a book, or is it just Tony being Tony on the page and that's how it happens?
I think it's how it happens. I think it's especially what I think happens is I have problem solving. I try to figure out each project and there's different solutions. And I have a feeling like a lot of artists who I like you watch like the Beatles or the Beastie Boys and they keep changing each project. Each album's like what totally different. But at some point like the Beastie Boys, after like Hello Nasty, it kind of solidifies into this is kind of what we do now. We take these first three, four records and you smash them together, and this is what we do in general. And maybe that will happen. Maybe it won't, because it's kind of I do kind of think as an audience member, I think it's most interesting when that doesn't happen, when they just keep on warping and being weird. I think that's the coolest part. So I don't know, but yeah, so far it has been different. And then again, if I do this project with like this animation pitch creator thing, that'll be very different. Like in my mind, I'm gonna try to do something which like you might part of it you might not even know this is me drawing it. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but there's a lot of potential there. But I think it'd be cool to kind of always be weird and shifting. And of course, who knows? Maybe my audience will be like, God damn it, man, he was really good, Attaboy up to like maybe Friday 13th actually, and then the rest has just been like.
Let's talk about the Friday the 13th bootleg.
Love it.
Normally, I would not, bring up an unlicensed book and that kind of stuff. Friday the 13th, the bootleg book, again, proves why I fucking love Tony as a storyteller. Because it's like, what are you going to do? Like, most people would just do their fan art take on, this is what I want to do as a Jason movie. Nope. He went and he took the original idea from the discarded script, that has Tommy showing back up and all of these dudes teaming up from all of the past movies to go and take on Jason. He did put his own spin on it, but where did the idea for the Friday the 13th book come from? Because I fucking love that book so much better than it has any right to be, by the way.
Thank you. So I guess like the big idea, the big inspirations are two things. Tom Scioli's Transformers versus G.I. Joes, which is one of my favorite books of all time at this point. That showed me like, oh man, you can take a licensed property and if you let somebody creative just go nuts on it, it'll be a piece of art. It'll be a real piece of art. And that's what that book is. And so I always thought that was great. And I love analogs. I love playing with like knockoffs and weird versions of mutant versions of characters. I think that's really fun. Like The Simpsons is full of that. I think it's really creative and fun. I've done that. But then I have an artist who lives in my town who I'm friendly with, and his name's Clay McCormick. Clay McCormick's actually he's writing some Batman stuff now. He's doing some Batman White Knight spin-off stuff for with Harley Quinn and her kids and stuff. Yeah, he's friends with Sean Murphy, Sean Gordon Murphy, and like he's writing that stuff now. So Clay McCormick's doing really good. He's also an artist. He's a very talented dude and he's a really nice guy. He also is a really good podcaster. And he has a podcast called Rotten Horror Picture Show, which is they go through Rotten Tomatoes best horror movies and they talk about the movies, right? So they did a Friday 13th thing, and at one point he's like, like Jason, the story doesn't make any sense. Each movie they keep changing the backstory. It's real weird. He's like, the only way it works is if like Jason's some sort of Topa. I was like, yeah, that's right. I was like, if he's a Topa, I was like, that's really interesting. So I asked Clay, I was like, hey Clay, your Jason Topa idea, can I just make a comic book about that? And he's like, well, it's not much of an idea really, but yeah, I guess. I mean, it's a you don't own Jason. I was like, yeah, of course, but I'm gonna make a bootleg. He's like, yeah, go for it, man. That sounds great. And so I gave him credit in the book, but the idea is essentially that, you know, topas are manifestations of people's thoughts and fears or whatever about different things. So basically the people's idea of Jason becomes the physical manifestation of Jason, and that sort of explains why he looks so different in all the movies and all this stuff. And I thought that's a cool way to do this. And I was like, oh, then I could bring back, there's been many scripts which I haven't even used, and there's a couple concepts from them I like. I like the idea of the gang of surviving final girls and Tommy getting back together. And then I was like, oh, man, that's cool. The thing about Friday 13th is like there's no there's no classic in the series per se. There's one I like better than others. But I like the general mood and there's a lot of good iconography. And I was like, oh man, I started thinking of ideas like, oh, it'd be cool if you go into Jason's mind. What if he's on the little canoe and he's touching the water, but it's like blood, and then the baby Jason comes and tackles him as like a throwback to the first movie. I was like, oh man, there's so many things, and the mask it's a mask, right? That mask is one of those masks I just latched onto as a kid, and I was like, this is all me. And he even has a triangle in his mask, and I'm all about triangles. I was like, this is built for me. And so the big exercise for me was like, okay, I want to play with the real toys. I do analogs a lot. I want to play with the real thing. What would I do with that? And I could only do one issue. I had to do other stuff, but it turned out great. I really loved it. I like people really dig it. I will say, um, it sold really well. And I don't know. I think at least half the people who bought it, that's the only thing they were going to buy from me, and that's totally cool. But the other half, maybe I convert it, or they might have been existing readers. But it was an experiment in that way too. It's like, hey, would this work as a lure? And it's like, well, maybe not so much, but people do in general dig it. And you can still go to my website and read it for free. It'll be up there forever. But I'm done. I sold all the. I had two printings, and I'm done. I'm out of the Jason game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wish I could tell you guys to go and pick up a copy like the last time I talked to Tony, but I gave you guys fair warning. The book, you couldn't even buy it because it's unlicensed, so couldn't buy the book from him. But you could buy an original drawing of Jason for $10. And I was so pissed because I missed out on the last 10 copies. And then I got so lucky because a guy actually heard me talking about that and was like,
Yeah.
dude, would you like one? Because I begged Tony to do this for me and I have to downsize and I can't have it on my wall. And I was like, fuck yeah. So it is on its way to my house. It's going to be up on my wall. So
Love it.
excited.
Love it.
Yeah, the book is really, really cool. I do suggest you guys go check it out. It's probably as close to like what I would consider mainstream work as you're gonna see from Tony. It's really cool because it's one comic, it's self-contained, it is dealing with the same magnitude and scape of world that he usually does, but you're like intricately familiar with so many different little facets of it that he can weave in and out of his story and stories from other films and things that you're aware of and things that you peripherally just know instinctually know about the character. Super cool stuff. And the page layouts did seem like a really big learning experience for you. What kind of like timetable did you do that book on? Because I can't imagine you set yourself a huge, section of time aside to get that book done, considering you couldn't really sell it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think I churned it out fairly quickly. I can't remember exactly, but it's only if it's 24 pages, that's the longest. It might be only be 20 or 22.
I
It's
think
like
it's like 20, yeah.
yeah, I think it's the shortest book I've ever done, maybe. But it was just a lot of fun though. So it was like no chore really. I thought of it and it was really fun, just to make. I even put like the Paramount logo on the inside front cover, and I was like, fuck it, man, it's a bootleg. I'll just steal that. Like, who cares? What are they gonna do? Um, yeah, it was quick, and I think I did that. I think I did that right after Attaboy. Like maybe I waited a month or two, and I knew I was going to do some other projects. I think I was going to do my novels, and so I was like, okay, I'll do this in the meantime. Um, and it was great. It's like when you hear about a band like they just went in the studio just to mess around and they knocked out an EP or something. I was like, yeah, just knocked it out. It was great.
It's cool to hear that it was actually created like that because that's kind of how it reads.
Sure.
But it was interesting, and not in a negative way at
Yeah.
all. I mean that as a big compliment because it flows very well like that. But it is very like the panel composition, the way that you approach pages in that book, very different than anything else you've ever done. It reminds me a lot of a 24-page book that I would pick up from Marvel or DC that was a Jason comic book.
Right. Right.
I just didn't know if that was like a conscious thing or again, Tony sitting down to work and that's just how Tony do.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of times that's what happens. I kind of I work kind of fast. Maybe I don't have time to overanalyze it a little bit, and for the most part, I think that's worked for me. Well, I guess we'll find out. Maybe someday I'll slow down and go, oh, this is much better, or maybe it won't be. Yeah.
So you got Kickstarter coming up. Let's talk about the Kickstarter. Tell everybody, how
Thanks,
can they
man.
give you money? Shove money at the
Pl-
screen and make awesome comics fall out.
Exactly. Please do. So this July we're doing it. Serious Creatures issue 7 through 12, the second trade collection. It's coming out. It's gonna be in Kickstarter, July 1st. I'm doing it. And it's gonna be this is the final part of the whole story. And there's also a thing where if you haven't read Creatures Trade 1, you can get them both together, a bargain deal, get the whole thing going. It's this is a story of a special effects kid growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, working in Hollywood, and the second part is kind of the second half of Boogie Nights. This is when shit kind of goes south a little bit. There's some dark times for everyone involved, and I kind of feel like it's my best work to date. I just feel really proud of the work. And if you combine it with the first series creatures, you have this 12 issue. I've been calling it my low stakes epic because it's in a lot of ways it's not about like, murder or death or any of these like or war. It's about people hurting each other's feelings and no longer being friends and backstabbing each other, and it's kind of, I think, more relatable in a lot of ways, but they're also making cool movies, and there's tons of homages and like love letters to various like Return of the Living Dead and The Thing and Nightmare on Elm Street and all these movies I grew up on. And yeah, and I'm gonna do like I usually do with Kickstarters. I'll be also, if you want to put in some more money, get some original pages, get some original art. And I love doing that kind of stuff. I'm going to go to Heroes Con in a couple weeks, and so I will probably sell some original art there, but I think there'll be plenty of pages from Serious Creatures, Reel 2 to be put up on Kickstarter. But I love it. I gotta shoot a video for it soon. I gotta wait for Good Hair Day, and then we're gonna do it. Important stuff.
Oh God, I hate shooting those videos, man. You're up at like 4 a.m. in the morning trying to get that one line, and you're like, and I remember when I fucking did it, not again, not again. Okay, take
Yeah,
it back, and I need to look normal and not like I've drank 12 pots of coffee and am shaking. I'm so happy.
right. And
Uh,
the best part is, so you watch half the time for Kickstarters. I don't even watch the video. I just like, oh, I like this guy. I like his stuff. I'll back it.
it's
So people,
90% of things, but you have to have the video so that you don't look like a fucking schmuck that doesn't have the
right.
video, you know?
I know it's such a catch-22, but I'm gonna do the video. I'm gonna do it.
I
You'll
I'll
see.
I'll do you the same as I did Nick Pitara. Send me some good stuff, and I will do you a Uncle Jerk 2.5 minute trailer promo reel for it. Like no
Oh,
joking. Send it to me. I
all right.
would love to do it.
Thanks,
I
man.
I am
Yeah.
all about serious creatures, and I'm really excited that there will be a package deal that's going on. I know people can still pick up the first serious creatures from you right now,
Yeah.
but as far as the single issues go, they are out of print as far as I know. You
Yeah.
do stuff. That's another thing. You do offer like subscription services and stuff.
Yeah.
I should definitely mention that to people. Your trades are wonderful. I love them. I love having everything in one place. Your art is so intricate. There are so many Easter eggs. There is so much stuff there that having the single issues, guys, and I'm not trying to get you to pay $5 for an issue instead of $20 for a trade when they're going to be harder to get. I'm telling you, for me personally, I track them down because just looking at them in that more open, free-flowing format is incredible. It's I highly recommend you track down every single issue that you can get a hold of. I've seen a couple of runs come up lately, and I just if you guys see them, snatch them up. So you got the Kickstarter coming up, Serious Creatures, and there was one other. Wasn't there something else we were going to talk about tonight?
Well, I'm doing like a signing of Attaboy, but that's it's no big deal. Like
Okay, well, okay, so Heroes Con, you're going to be at Heroes Con. So personal appearance, you're going to be at Heroes Con.
yep.
I know that do you have commissions open or anything for that?
I do actually. I've already done a couple, but yeah, I could probably do another couple before the show. It's like a couple weeks. Yeah.
Hit up Tony, buy
Yeah,
art.
please do it. Yeah, I love money. Also I like drawing stuff. I just drew Animal Man for the first time. I did a painting of Animal Man.
That watercolor was incredible, my
Thanks. I
friend.
was really happy, man, with how that turned out. That was kind of a it's pretty good. And now I realized Animal Man rules to draw. Like I love the visor, the big goggle things. Cool.
Dude, great comic. Well, depending on when, but great comic, great character, man.
Right, right.
Still like the gospel, like I think that might be the best single issue that I've ever read. Like,
That's
holy
awesome.
shit, man.
Yeah, Grant Morrison knows what they're doing.
When they're firing on all cylinders, for
Right.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Like they seem like they can kind of get out in the ether a little bit, which is going to happen when you're doing that kind of storytelling. I'm not bashing or anything, but
Yeah, no, totally. Especially if you do that much work too,
you're
you're
kind of
gonna
like
have
throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks at some points. I get the
right.
feeling, but that shit was fucking mind blowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's gonna be at Heroes Con. Tony's gonna be at Heroes Con. He's got the upcoming Kickstarter. The Attaboy trade paperback is available from Mad Cave through your local LCS right now. You can get, I think probably, well, Bounce House Bazaar, I'm sure, is out of print at this point too, probably, isn't it?
There's like 5 copies left. I forget if it's up my
Oh
shop.
shit.
I'm taking them to Heroes Con. They might be gone. But don't worry. Grape Shot, my character will reappear. We'll figure it out. He'll be back.
Are you gonna do another anthology with it, or is he getting his own book, or have
I
you
think
decided? I mean, I guess that's like three projects out at this
yeah.
point.
No. I think he's gonna have his own book. Grape Shot, Man of Lethal Leisure. That sounds cool. He deserves his own book. I got a loose idea, so I just gotta figure out when I'm gonna do it. That's the thing, man. The clock's ticking. I'm getting older. I gotta figure this out.
I feel you, man. You hit 40 and you're like, oh, God, it's not like half over. It's like more than half. I'm on the downhill. I'm gonna ride this one fast and get as much shit done as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's definitely how it's feeling lately. But hey, it's okay. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Hey, downhill runs are fun.
Yeah,
I, Need for Speed, baby.
I'm in the shopping cart with no wheels, man, but I'm going down and that's fine.
I'm going nowhere fast. That's my life. So, is there anything that we missed? Anything that you'd like to talk about, Tony?
Dude, no, you've been great. You always the first video we did, you gave still standing the best, most thoughtful examination of my work I've ever witnessed. So I appreciate that, and this has been great too. Always a blast talking to you, man. Thanks for having me. Seriously.
Dude, thank you so much for being on the channel. Again, guys, I know I've been beating you over the head with stuff tonight, but I don't say it often. Attaboy is a comic that you need to read. It should be a comic that's in your home as a comic book lover. Even if it's not something that you hold on to, you will know someone who needs that book in their life. It's a book that you will pass on. It is like Watchmen. It is like The Dark Knight Returns in the sense that when you take it in, it becomes a part of you and you feel the need to share that with other people so that they can have that in their life as well. It is a absolute pleasure to be able to turn people on to Tony's work. I cannot thank you enough for your kind words about, my overview of your stuff. That really means a lot. I really, really respect you as a creator, as an
Thanks, man.
artist. And guys, if you do want to see an older, little bit more in-depth interview, there is another one. It is archived on my Instagram page, so you can go by and check that out. But go and pick up stuff. Tony's got an online store that I'll have linked in the description below. You can go to your LCS and pick up Attaboy. Get on Facebook, hit him up, and buy art. He is a click away, and I cannot recommend it enough. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. And as always, I really, truly, and honestly ask only two things: keep reading comics and keep supporting independent artists. If you did enjoy what you saw, make sure you hit that like button. Think about getting in the comment section below and letting me know if you really enjoyed what you saw. Make sure you Hulk smash that subscribe button. If you do that, make sure you ding the little notification bell so you never miss another video or premiere. Again, if you feel like you're in a position to help the channel grow, think about using the link in the description below to sign up for my Patreon page. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to tons of behind the scenes posts, updates, exclusive content like uncut interviews, and you can even get your name in the credits. If you want to support the channel, if Patreon is not your thing, have no fear. You can finally sign up for membership right here on YouTube. Just hit the little join button and make sure to select the tier and the perks that fit you best. If that's not enough, you can also make one-time donations towards specific goals or just tip the channel using the Ko-Fi link in the description below. And you can even pick up your very own JerkComic shirts like the ones you see on the screen now. As always, this video was brought to you by the Jerk Broadcasting Service, as well as generous grants from the Patreon, Ko-Fi, and YouTube members you see on the screen now. I seriously want to thank every single one of you that supports the channel and helps make these videos possible, with a super special thanks to my loyal Wednesday Warriors, Channel 10, Chasen, Clinton Salvini, and Mike Dolan. I really hope the quality and content is getting better, and I can't wait to see where this next year takes us with your continued support. Thank you again for helping this crazy dream of mine become a reality, and for sticking with me. I hope you all enjoyed, maybe even learned something, and as always, I really, truly, and honestly ask only two things: keep it in those local shops, and keep reading comics.